Hey everyone, I chose the discrimination against Latinos for my discrimination speech, and Latinos do go through a ton of stuff throughout America due to discrimination, so I'm just going to explain the discrimination against Latino education, explain what colorism is, the income and mental stability levels of the Latinos due to discrimination, and then finally just the trauma symptoms of Latinos due to discrimination. So first of all, I'm going to explain just the basics of this discrimination of Latinos with education. So here it says Latino students make up 23.9% of schools ranging from preschool to 12th grade. And according to the National Center for Educational Statistics, 83% of the teaching force remains white, which means there's a huge loss of basic Latino education in the country. So what that really means to me is that the white educators will just basically teach what they were grown up to know, which is American histories, American just cultural knowledge, and just the community wisdom. And the Latino population has no idea. They're not familiar with the curriculum, which leads to just a really negative grade for them, which gives them a really tough time in the real world, and it'll give them trouble in the long run, which I'll speak about later, with jobs, and that they can have poverty. It increases the poverty level in America. So moving on to my next topic, I'm going to explain the definition of colorism and the income and mental health levels of Latinos due to discrimination. So, colorism is a form of within-group racial discrimination. And although the psychological literature of colorism is small, the few studies available have found that darker skin prejudice negatively affects Latino education, mental health, and income. So, I read about a study on the online source that said people with lighter skin have a higher success rate due to education, which I just explained. You know, the white teachers basically just knowing the American ways and whatnot. And the second study that I read about was they did a test on depression between African Americans, American Europeans, and then Afro-Latinos. And the highest test level for depression ended up being the Latinos. So because of the prejudice due to the Latinos, they have a really tough time getting jobs in America, which, if a white person and a Latino are going for a job, usually the owner would pick the white over the Latino. So that's a huge discrimination factor to me. So the last thing that I wanted to go over was the trauma symptoms that Latinos can go through during discrimination, like the act of discrimination. So, like I said earlier, Latinos make up a hefty amount of the population in America. In fact, the Latino population grew with so many percentages between 1990 and 2000, making up to approximately 12.5% of the U.S. population. So like I said throughout this whole speech, discrimination is just a huge stress on Latinos. So Latinos, they get to the point where they're so stressed out, they will turn to alcohol and drugs. They'll turn to just anything that will make them feel better. They can even turn to depression. They can even, if worse comes to worse, they just turn to suicide, which there are therapists throughout all of America, and they do face a huge obstacle because they have to be aware of their own behaviors and how the interaction within the therapeutic setting may include unintentional microaggressions. So basically, the therapists have to be extremely careful with what they say because the Latinos have gone through so much throughout their lives. So coming to my conclusion, I hope I've informed you on just the basic discriminations of Latinos, and I personally learned tons about the Latinos and the sad discriminations that Americans do make against them. They did come to America, which they refer to as the land of opportunity, and they ended up facing all these things that were extremely tough for them. They had to separate from their families, and they had a huge language change, and just they ran into unfair working conditions, which is really upsetting to me. So I hope you guys have enjoyed my speech, and I hope that you've learned a little bit about discrimination against Latinos. Thank you.